Good day, everyone. Welcome to Global Government News. Today is August 21st, 2010, and I'm Darko. Thank you for joining me in this War on Terror, Liberty, and Sovereignty news bulletin here. And this first article we have up, actually, let me give you just a little heads up. I'm going to cover Iran and the new nuclear facility that just went active today. There has been no war that's broken out prior to that, so that's a good thing. But there's been a lot of backpedaling, a lot of PR going on, and we're going to cover that. We're also going to cover the floods in Pakistan. Again, same propaganda and exploitation of that whole situation down there. And then lastly, we're going to cover Iraq and how we're being told that the Iraq war is over, much like a mission accomplished. So without further ado, let's cut to this Bloomberg article that is actually not bad. It says Russia opening Iran nuclear plant advances goal to play power broker role. Iran, under the UN sanctions for its nuclear program, said it ended a 36-year quest to join the club of atomic power nations when Russia's Rosatom Corp switched on a reactor along the Persian Gulf coast. The start of the 1,000 megawatt power reactor near the southern city of Bushehr makes Iran the first country in the Middle East with a nuclear energy facility, freeing more of its fossil fuels for export. Iran also becomes only the second Muslim state after Pakistan to have nuclear power, with ambitions to build enough plants to generate 20,000 megawatts within 10 years. And it says, and that's what I'm starting to think about now. Whether Iran is just another kind of, they talk about how they're anti-New World Order, but then they basically say, well, we're going to be establishing a New World Order. So, and so I'm not sure, like Pakistan is a kind of a puppet state as far as the people that are in charge of it, not the people themselves, but the people that are in charge of it is kind of a puppet regime. And it's definitely pro-West. And so, and it's basically, we already know a lot of the money that goes to the Pakistanis go to the Taliban, and the U.S. intelligence, all of them know that. And that's why I say it's all kind of a phony war. And so I'm wondering whether this whole thing with Iran is really just all planned, and there never was going to be a war. It was just kind of a bunch of fear-mongering. But either way, it says Iran began loading the Bushehr plant with nuclear fuel, the state-run news channel Press TV said, showing images of Iranian and Russian nuclear officials inside. And it says, "I'd like to thank our friend Russia and its people for helping us build this station," Iranian Vice President Ali Akbar Salih, who also heads the country's atomic energy organization, told reporters today before opening the ceremony. Said Bushehr is a unique project globally. Rosatom Corp Chief Executive Officer Sergei Kirienko, who attended the opening, given the 36-year wait. The startup of Bushehr is a symbolic moment of Iran. For us, it is important that Russia has shown that it stands by its obligation. And this gives a little background. The U.S., while accepting that the Russian-fueled Bushehr reactor is for civilian use, has attacked President Ahmadinejad's expansion of the nuclear program to include uranium enrichment. The UN in June passed a fourth round of sanctions against Iran for refusing to suspend enrichment, which can produce reactor fuel or bomb-grade material. Iran denies it plans to make weapons and says the enrichment is for peaceful purposes, such as fueling a medical research reactor in Tehran. And you move down, you can get the bigger picture, which is the Russians are actually supplying the uranium and for their nuclear energy plant. So they're not actually developing it. The Iranians, they're bringing it in, and then the Russians are taking out the waste. It says today, state-owned Rosatom began deliveries of the first fuel assembly to start the fueling process under the supervision of the UN's IAEA, and it says Kirienko joined Salehi in an inspection of the control room. It says power generation that will account for less than 4% of Iran's electricity will start in about 3 months. From the Washington Post, Iran starts nuclear reactor, says intent peaceful. Bushehr, Iran. Trucks rumbled into Iran's first reactor Saturday to begin loading tons of uranium fuel in a long-delayed startup touted by officials as both a symbol of the country's peaceful intentions to produce nuclear energy, as well as a triumph over Western pressure to rein in its nuclear ambitions. And see, the thing that kind of scares me, guys, is that I've been covering this, and I don't want us to attack Iran, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that if we don't, I'm not part of this. It doesn't mean that if the Western military-industrial complex doesn't attack Iran before they get their nuclear facility up, if they don't attack that and then all of a sudden we find out that, oh, they have the capability of producing nuclear weapons. It doesn't mean that it was wrong because we didn't attack them, or that the Western establishment didn't attack them preemptively. So what I'm getting at is that this facility was originally created and developed by the West. It was created by the United States and different corporations from the West. And after the Islamic Revolution, Iran took it over. And see, I'm skeptical about revolutions as well, because I think the revolution, even in the United States, was fabricated, and basically a corporation was created, a new account, a sub-account of the Bank of England. And so I think a lot of it is just a lot of whitewashed disinformation. And so I think the revolution over there as well, quite possibly, was New World Order, along with their symbol, which is very Masonic with the two swords. That's straight out of Masonry. So I'm starting to think, just like with the Iran, with the Iraq War, which was the Iraq-Iran War in the 80s, we know that the U.S. was supplying all the nuclear biological weapons that we went in the 90s to take out. We gave them to Saddam. We supplied them to him for the Iran-Iraq War. And so I think that this is basically what it is. Now, I've come to that realization today, that Iran will be like the next Iraq, where we'll end up going in there to take out these weapons that in the long run we ended up finding out that we were supplying, which we were. I've reported that a lot of these facilities, or some of these facilities at least, are getting weapons off the black market because of the sanctions, but these components are coming from the United States, which are purposely bunk parts, and that's how I read it. So then we get to this, and it's kind of just weird. It says, fears may be overblown as Iran reactor comes online. And it says, despite the media hysteria over a supposed drumbeat for war with Iran, the White House is not unduly worried about the news that Russia will on Saturday begin loading enriched uranium in Iran's Bushehr nuclear reactor. And so you got mainstream media now basically backpedaling after ramping this up for how long now? Saying that, oh yeah, see, it's okay, it's no big deal, it was all overblown. Like, no, you guys were overblowing it, you know? We move on here. UK, Iran entitled to peaceful nuclear energy. Oh, now the UK, oh yeah, see, oh, they're entitled to peaceful energy. Something just doesn't sit right with this whole thing. Following the inauguration of Bushehr power plant, a top British official says London has always respected Iran's right to peaceful nuclear energy. Quote, the loading of Russian fuel into the Bushehr nuclear power reactor demonstrates that Iran can have the benefits of nuclear power, British Foreign Office Minister Alistair Burt said in a statement on Saturday. Quote, we have always respected Iran's right to develop an exclusively civil nuclear power program. Iran began injecting fuel into the Bushehr power plant on Saturday with the attendance of the UN inspectors. And it says, Burt went on to say, UN sanctions have never sought to prevent the construction operation of the Bushehr power reactor. So, you know, with all the rhetoric and all this stuff, it's almost like doublethink, really. I mean, that's really what it is. So the U.S. admits Iran nuclear plant for civilian ends. Following the inauguration of the Bushehr power plant, Washington has acknowledged that Iranian nuclear facility carries no risk of proliferation. Iran began injecting fuel in the Bushehr power plant on Saturday with attendance of UN inspectors. So as State Department, we recognize that the Bushehr reactor is designed to provide civilian nuclear power and do not view it as a proliferation risk. AFP quoted State Department spokesman Darby Holliday as saying on Saturday. Said, however, he repeated the claim by White House spokesman Robert Gates that launching the Bushehr plant, quote, underscores that Iran does not need an indigenous enrichment capability if its intentions are purely peaceful, since Russia is providing fuel for the plant. The New York Times, so these are all globalist establishment media, and they're all telling you that everything's okay. See, these are the experts, and when they tell you what is what, you believe it. It says, U.S. assures Israel that Iran threat is not imminent. The Obama administration, citing evidence of continued troubles inside Iran's nuclear program, has persuaded Israel that it would take roughly a year and perhaps longer for Iran to complete what one senior official called a, quote, dash for a nuclear weapon, according to American officials. I covered that as far as the Israel striking within a year. So the administration officials said they believe the assessment has dimmed the prospect that Israel would preemptively strike against the country's nuclear facilities within the next year. Israeli officials have suggested in thinly veiled threats. Well, it seems to me that since they didn't attack them, the U.S. and UK, they didn't get something popping, that it would make a bigger case for Israel going ahead preemptively and unilaterally and striking Iran. But I don't know. It's all, it's kind of confusing. We're just trying to make some kind of sense of this, I guess. And then we have this, Iran, 12 months from a nuclear weapon, U.S. warns as Bushehr reactor started. So, I mean, you see what I'm saying with the double think? U.S. sought to reassure Israel that Iran is still a year away from building a nuclear weapon, as Iran's leadership hailed the fueling of its first nuclear power plant on. And this is from the Activist Post, and it's titled H.R. 1553, authorizing, quote, the use of force against Iran is based on pure propaganda. America has not officially declared war on a nation since World War II, yet we are now entangled in endless wars with no feasible goals except sustained military profits and resource grabs. Instead, Congress votes to, quote, authorize the use of force just in case we may need it, which strategically limits the public debate, although many believe that the stiff Iran sanctions detailed in H.R. 94, the Comprehensive Iran Sanctions Accountability and Divestment Act, was an act of war. The Republican proposed H.R. 1553 is the actual authorization of the U.S., quote, the use of military force backing Israel's right to, quote, use any means necessary to protect itself from Iran, including preemptive strikes. What exactly is it about? H.R. 1553, expressing support for the state of Israel's right to defend Israeli sovereignty, to protect their lives and safety of the Israeli people, and to use all means necessary to confront and eliminate nuclear threats posed by the Islamic Republic of Iran, including the use of military force if no other peaceful solution can be found within reasonable time to protect against such an immediate and existential threat to the state of Israel. This next one, we're moving into Pakistan news. This is from the London Telegraph. Pakistan flood aid from Islamic extremists. I'm so used to saying Islamic terrorists, I almost said it. The queue stretches silently into the darkness as dozens of families wait patiently for a plate of rice and chicken curry to break their Ramadan fast. And it says there is not a United Nations pickup or Pakistani government official in sight at the small but efficient relief camp close to the northwest Pakistani town of Nowshera. But it says instead the food is provided by a hardline Islamist charity linked to terrorists blamed for the 2008 attacks on Mumbai. And let me just go out there and say that Hamid Gul, whatever, that was on InfoWars, I think about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, basically said that it was Pakistani intelligence that helped orchestrate that attack in India. So I don't buy that. It says that 2 years after it was supposed to be banned, it says members are working under a new name, providing food, medicine, and wads of rupee notes to hundreds of thousands of people affected by the devastating floods. This is titled British Cabinet Ministers Airlifted to Safety After Pakistan Aid Convoy Attack. 2 cabinet ministers had to be airlifted to safety by Pakistan military after their convoy came under attack after they visited the country's flood victims to deliver aid. And we're running out of time here, so I'm just going to finish up. Flood relief and politics in Pakistan. The world is seeing a tragedy unfold as monsoon rains swell the expansive Indus River and flood large parts of Pakistan. From these different provinces to the Arabian Sea, whether directed by Pakistanis or outside agencies, relief will not always be straightforward humanitarian effort, neither in intent nor result. It will be tempered with civil military issues, international politics, and concerns with Pakistani's very future. And it says civilians and soldiers. And it says here, Pakistan has alternated between civilian and military governments since an inception in 1947. Neither established a record of capable government in the eyes of the people, and according to polling data, neither enjoys substantial support. Pakistan are not supportive of rule by heavy-handed authoritarians or grasping oligarchs. This is no foreseeable U.S. withdrawal from Iraq. An American investigative journalist has rejected the notion that the U.S. military would desert Iraq in a foreseeable. Orwell in charge. Kucinich compares Iraq exit to Bush's mission accomplished. Civilians to take the lead as military leaves Iraq. Iraq withdrawal building Hillary Clinton an army, and it says the less than 50,000 non-combat soldiers that remain behind are being replaced by a new U.S. civilian contract army under the control of Secretary of State Clinton. Gazan fishermen shot by Israeli Navy. Israel vows to seize Lebanon Israel jets drone enter Lebanon airspace, and Iran firm on expanding